All right, so we're diving into some seriously fascinating stuff today. We're talking UFOs, alien encounters, all those mysteries that have kept us looking up at the sky for, like, forever. You guys sent in some awesome materials, so we're going to be looking at descriptions of different UFO shapes, how society might react if we actually met extraterrestrials, and even the whole thing with those unidentified drones.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? The variety of reports we have is just mind-blowing. It's not just fuzzy lights in the sky. People are giving detailed descriptions of shapes, movements, even interactions with witnesses. Makes you wonder what's really going on out there.
Totally. And those shapes are crazy diverse. I mean, we've got your classic flying saucers, sure, but then it gets wild.
Oh, yeah.
Cigar-shaped UFOs, triangles, spheres.
Triangles are
I
interesting.
know, right? And then there's chevrons and diamonds.
I've heard of those.
Some people even talk about huge cylindrical motherships, things called black blobs.
Black blobs.
Yeah, and even shape-shifting craft. It's like a cosmic toy box exploded or something.
It really is. And what's even more fascinating is that these shapes often come with all these strange characteristics. Glowing lights, metallic surfaces, completely silent movement. And they move in ways that, like, defy our understanding of aerodynamics. And in some reports, you even have smaller craft coming out of these larger motherships.
Yeah.
It's like a level of organization, maybe even technology that we can't even wrap our heads around.
It's not just random stuff flying around,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like there's a reason behind those movements.
Mhm.
Some of those cases are just intriguing.
Like which ones?
Well, like those Foo Fighters, those glowing orbs that pilots reported back in World War II.
Right.
Nobody could explain those back then.
Yeah.
And the name just stuck because, I mean, it captures that mystery perfectly.
And then you've got the Hestalen lights in Norway. For decades, people have been seeing these unexplained lights hovering, moving around in that valley. Scientists have studied them, but still, no definitive answer.
And speaking of close encounters, there's that Cash Landrum incident back in 1980.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Multiple witnesses said they saw this diamond-shaped UFO giving off intense heat and light. And get this, they even reported getting burns and like radiation symptoms afterward.
Wow.
So that's not just a sighting, right? It raises some serious questions about what these things can do to us. Out of all those shapes, which one do you find most compelling? Like, what really piques your curiosity?
I'd have to say those massive cylindrical motherships. I mean, if they really are carrying smaller craft, that suggests a whole organized presence, maybe even a civilization with a specific reason for being here. And if so, what is that reason? It's a question that keeps me up at night.
Okay, yeah, that takes us to the big question. Trent.
Yeah.
What if it's not just lights in the sky? What if it's an alien civilization? How would we react if extraterrestrials actually landed on Earth? Would we come together, or would it tear us apart?
It's the ultimate what if, isn't it? And the response, well, it would be incredibly complex. A mix of political, social, and scientific anxiety. I mean, you could see a push for global unity with the UN leading a global defense force. Maybe nations would put aside their differences, at least for a while, to face a common enemy.
That's an amazing image, but is it realistic? Part of me wonders if some countries, especially those with strong militaries, might see it as a chance to grab power, maybe even try to get their hands on alien technology.
That's a good point. History shows us that power dynamics shift when new threats emerge. And even if we somehow survive that initial encounter, what then?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the impact on our daily lives. Infrastructure could be disrupted, economies could crash, and our whole understanding of where we fit in the universe, it would be turned upside down.
It's almost overwhelming to think about. Our cultures, our religions, everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmos, all of a sudden challenged. How do we even adapt to that new reality?
It forces us to look at ourselves, doesn't it? Would we rise to the occasion or crumble under the pressure? The potential for both chaos and incredible innovation is just huge.
Okay, let's say we're facing this alien invasion and the initial shock has worn off. How would we even defend ourselves? Especially if their technology is far beyond ours. Could we even stand a chance?
Well, that's where it gets really tough. We might have to advance our technology by decades, maybe even centuries, in a very short amount of time. Imagine harnessing energy in ways we haven't even dreamed of: advanced energy weapons, laser defenses, and really sophisticated cyber defenses to counter whatever they throw at us. We might even have to try and reverse engineer their tech to level the playing field.
So a lot is riding on the ingenuity of our scientists and engineers. But beyond the technology itself, what about strategy? How would we fight a war against a potentially superior force?
That's where things get really interesting. Instead of traditional armies and battlefields, we might need to create heavily fortified safe zones, maybe even build defenses in space. It wouldn't be about brute force, it'd be about using our knowledge of Earth, our understanding of psychology to outmaneuver them.
It sounds like a cosmic chess match, a battle of wits as much as a battle of technology. But let's bring things back down to Earth, literally. We haven't confirmed any alien visitors yet, but there are already unidentified objects in our skies that are causing concern. What can you tell us about those mysterious drones that have been popping up lately?
This is where the line between science fiction and reality blurs. Reports of unidentified drones have gone through the roof in recent years. And it's not just in rural areas. They're being seen over cities, even near military bases. And nobody seems to know who's flying them or what they're doing.
So we have these unknown objects in our airspace with unknown origins and intentions. Is this a real-life mystery unfolding, or is there a simpler explanation that we're missing?
It's definitely unsettling. The FAA and Homeland Security are looking into it, but so far, no clear answers. What are they doing? Who's controlling them? Are they just tech-savvy hobbyists pushing the limits, or is there something more organized, maybe even sinister going on?
It's like a real-life spy thriller playing out above our heads. Some people think it could be private companies testing new tech, but seeing them near military bases and other sensitive areas raises some serious red flags. Makes you wonder if it's corporate espionage or something even more serious.
Yeah, the espionage angle is definitely there, but there are even more concerning possibilities. Imagine these drones being used for surveillance or even delivering something dangerous. That's something security agencies are definitely worried about.
That takes us from intriguing to downright scary. Do you think these drone incidents are isolated, or could they be part of something bigger, a more organized effort with a specific goal?
That's the million-dollar question. The fact that they sometimes fly in formation and show up near strategic locations suggests a level of organization and purpose that goes beyond just hobbyists having fun. The anonymity that drones offer is both fascinating and alarming because it makes it really hard to tell who's harmless and who could be a threat.
All right, so we've talked about potential threats from space and here on Earth. But let's shift gears a bit and explore something a little more palatable. We've talked about the possibility of encountering alien life, but have you ever considered if we could actually eat it?
Uh-huh. Now that's a question that goes beyond the usual alien worries and straight to biochemistry. Could our bodies even digest extraterrestrial life? Would it be a culinary delight or a recipe for disaster?
Could alien cuisine be the next big food trend? Or more like, don't try this at home?
The biggest hurdle is whether our biochemistries are even compatible. Imagine alien life based on totally different chemistry than ours, like silicon-based life forms instead of Earth carbon-based organisms. Our digestive systems probably wouldn't handle something that foreign very well.
So even if an alien looked like a giant space lobster, it wouldn't necessarily mean a tasty seafood dinner. Are we talking digestive problems, or could there be even bigger risks?
Oh, absolutely. Even if an alien's biochemistry was sort of similar to ours, there's the very real danger of unknown pathogens, toxins, or allergens. Think about the pufferfish here on Earth. It's a delicacy, but if it's not prepared right, it can kill you. And that's just one example from our own planet. Imagine the risks with alien life forms.
So alien cuisine could be a bit of a gamble, to say the least. But on the other hand, couldn't it also be a source of unique nutrients, things we don't have here on Earth? Could there be benefits to eating alien food? Assuming it's safe, of course.
That's a really interesting thought. Maybe alien organisms could provide new protein sources or essential nutrients we don't find in earthly food. Who knows, maybe in the future, biotechnology could help us adapt to alien foods, opening up a whole new world of culinary possibilities.
Okay, now I'm really picturing this. Alien sushi, extraterrestrial tapas. But seriously, if you were offered a dish made from an alien creature, would you be brave enough to try it?
Well, I definitely want to see the lab results first, but I think my curiosity would get the better of me. Of course, I need to make sure it was thoroughly tested and cooked by experts. As for how to cook it, well, that would depend on the alien, wouldn't it? We might need to invent entirely new cooking techniques.
That's a great point. We might need a whole new culinary vocabulary and a set of tools. It could completely change how we think about food. But for now, let's step away from the hypothetical buffet and go back to those strange UFO shapes. We talked about the visual variety, but what about the physics of it all? How could something like a triangular craft even fly?
That's where things get really fascinating. Many of these shapes, especially the triangles, seem to break the rules of aerodynamics as we know them. How do they generate lift and move in ways our technology can't?
So are we talking about super advanced propulsion systems, or is there something even more fundamental at play? Like, are they manipulating gravity or some other force we don't fully understand? It seems like we need a whole new branch of physics to even start explaining some of these things.
It's definitely possible that we're dealing with physics that are completely beyond us right now. But even if we stick to more conventional explanations, the propulsion systems needed for some of these reported movements would have to be incredibly advanced. Think about those silent, instantaneous accelerations some witnesses describe. That level of control and power is far beyond anything we can do.
It makes you wonder if these objects aren't bound by the same limitations we are. Maybe they're exploiting some loophole in the laws of physics that we haven't discovered yet.
Sure.
We tend to think within the boundaries of what we know, but what if those boundaries don't apply out there in the same way?
Exactly. That's what makes studying UFOs so exciting. It challenges us to rethink what we think is possible and pushes us to expand our scientific understanding.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today, from those bizarre UFO shapes and the possibility of alien cuisine to the very real concerns about unidentified drones in our skies. But before we go any further down this rabbit hole, let's take a quick break to gather our thoughts.
It's like we're only seeing a tiny piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Yeah, and speaking of those pieces, we talked about the societal impact if aliens actually showed up. But let's dig a little deeper.
Okay.
We talked about infrastructure problems, economic collapse.
Right.
But what about the less obvious stuff? Our cultures, our belief systems, our whole understanding of who we are.
It would be a huge shift in how we think about ourselves.
All right,
For
yeah.
centuries, we've seen ourselves as the dominant species on Earth, maybe even the only intelligent life in the entire universe.
It's true.
And that idea is built into our religions, our philosophy,
Art.
even our art and literature.
Exactly. Almost like our whole identity is based on this idea that humans are exceptional.
Yeah.
But what if we're not so exceptional after all? What if we're just one species among many, and not even the most advanced one? How would that change how we see ourselves, both as individuals and as a global community?
Well, it would be a humbling experience for sure. It could trigger a massive existential crisis, forcing us to rethink our place in the cosmos.
Wow.
Some people might find comfort in this new sense of interconnectedness, while others might cling even tighter to their existing beliefs, looking for something familiar in all the chaos.
I imagine we'd see a surge in religious activity, but also maybe new spiritual movements that try to incorporate the existence of extraterrestrial life into their beliefs.
Oh, definitely.
It wouldn't just be about adapting to a new reality. It would be about finding meaning in a universe that suddenly feels so much bigger and more complicated.
Exactly, and think about the impact on our political systems.
Oh, yeah.
We already have trouble cooperating on things like climate change and resource scarcity.
So true.
Imagine trying to deal with those issues with an alien civilization in the mix.
Yeah.
Would our current power structures even survive?
Good question.
Would we see international institutions like the UN become stronger? Or would countries just focus on themselves, prioritizing their own survival over global unity?
It's hard to say.
And how would we even start diplomatic relations with a species that might have totally different values, ethics, and ways of communicating?
That's a challenge.
These are questions that science fiction writers have been exploring for ages.
Yeah.
But now we're facing the possibility of having to answer them in real life.
That's scary.
One scenario that's particularly worrying is what some call the differential contact hypothesis.
What's that?
Imagine if aliens made contact with just one country,
Okay.
offering them advanced tech or other advantages in exchange for exclusive access to resources or political influence.
Whoa. It's like a sci-fi version of the Cold War, with nations competing for alien favor instead of nuclear weapons.
Exactly. It could make existing power imbalances even worse and potentially lead to new conflicts.
And how do we ensure that any contact with an alien civilization benefits all of humanity?
Right. It's not just about technology and resources.
It's about power.
It's about who gets to control it.
That's the core issue.
Yeah.
Even if we figure out how to talk to them and establish some kind of communication,
Right.
would we really understand what they want? Could we be sure they have our best interests in mind?
It's about trust, but also perspective.
Yeah.
What we see as beneficial, they might see as irrelevant or even harmful. Their values, their ethics, their whole way of thinking could be so different from ours that true understanding might be impossible.
That's deep.
And that's not even considering the possibility of them intentionally trying to deceive us.
Okay, let's step back from the worst-case scenarios for a minute.
Sure.
I'm curious, are there any potential benefits to encountering a more advanced alien civilization? Could we learn from them?
Possibly.
Could they help us solve some of the problems we're facing here on Earth?
They might have solutions to climate change, energy scarcity,
Yeah.
even diseases that we can't even imagine yet.
That would be incredible.
Just observing their technology, their social structures, how they interact with their environment could give us amazing insights.
It's true.
It could spark unprecedented scientific and social progress.
It's almost like a cosmic mentorship program.
Yeah,
Humanity learning from a more advanced civilization.
exactly.
But couldn't that also lead to us becoming too dependent on them? Even stagnation? What if we rely so much on their technology and solutions that we lose our own drive to innovate and solve our own problems?
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance, learning from them without becoming completely reliant on them.
Right.
The key would be to maintain our own agency, our own creativity, our own sense of purpose,
Yes.
even as we absorb new knowledge and adapt to new realities.
We can't just become passive recipients
Yeah.
of their wisdom.
No,
We need to stay active in shaping our own destiny.
absolutely.
But for now, we're still in the world of what ifs.
True.
Let's bring the conversation back to the evidence we have. We've talked about all these UFO shapes, some of which seem to defy our understanding of physics.
Right.
But what about those reports of shape-shifting craft?
Shape-shifting.
Objects that seem to morph from one form to another,
Interesting.
almost like they're made of liquid metal. Is there any scientific basis for those claims, or are they just pure fantasy?
Shape-shifting UFOs are definitely among the most puzzling and controversial reports.
I bet.
While many can be explained away as misidentifications, optical illusions, or even hoaxes,
Sure.
there are some cases that are really hard to explain.
Yeah.
Witnesses describe objects that change between geometric shapes,
Wow.
sometimes even changing color or brightness as they shift.
That's wild.
It challenges our whole idea of what a physical object can be.
I can see why those reports would capture people's imaginations.
Yeah.
But how can we reconcile those claims with what we know about physics and engineering? I mean, could something really morph from a disk to a triangle and back again, just like that?
It's a question that pushes the limits of our scientific knowledge.
For sure.
Some speculate that these objects might be made of plasma or some other form of energy that can easily change shape.
Okay.
Think about the aurora borealis, those shimmering lights in the sky.
The northern light.
Exactly. They're made of plasma, and they're constantly shifting and changing form.
So cool.
Could something similar be happening with some of these shape-shifting UFO reports?
So instead of solid metal craft, we're talking about something more like energized gas or light.
Exactly.
Something that can flow and change shape more easily. It's an interesting idea,
Yeah.
but does it explain the reports of intentional movement and seemingly intelligent behavior?
That's where the plasma hypothesis falls short.
Right.
It can explain the changing shapes, but it doesn't account for the directed movement and apparent purpose that many witnesses describe. That's why some researchers think we might be dealing with something far more advanced.
Like what?
Technology that can manipulate matter and energy in ways we can't even comprehend.
Okay, now we're getting back into science fiction territory.
Maybe, but is it really that far-fetched? We're always discovering new things in the universe.
Yeah,
Things that would have seemed impossible just a few decades ago.
that's true.
What if these shape-shifting UFOs are just evidence of technology that's centuries, maybe even millennia ahead of ours?
It's a humbling thought
Isn't it?
to realize that we might be seeing the leftovers of a civilization that has mastered physics and engineering in ways we haven't even begun to explore.
Yeah,
It makes us rethink our place in the grand scheme of things.
it does.
All right, let's change gears again.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about hypothetical scenarios, the what-ifs, the potential impact of alien contact.
Right.
But there's one big question we haven't addressed yet.
Which is,
How likely is any of this to actually happen? Are we really on the verge of an alien encounter? Or are we just letting our imaginations run wild?
that's the ultimate question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer. The evidence for extraterrestrial life, especially intelligent life, is still inconclusive. We have some interesting hints, some unexplained phenomena,
Yeah.
but no definitive proof.
So we're stuck between the possibility, however small, and the lack of solid evidence.
Right.
Is it fair to say that the scientific community is divided on this?
Absolutely. There's a whole range of viewpoints within the scientific community, from cautious optimism to outright skepticism.
I can see that.
Some scientists point to the vastness of the universe and the huge number of potentially habitable planets as evidence that we can't be alone.
That makes sense.
Others argue that the lack of any clear signals or artifacts suggests that intelligent life might be extremely rare, maybe even non-existent beyond Earth.
So it's a debate that's likely to go on for a while.
Most likely.
But in the meantime, we have these reports, these stories, these glimpses into the unknown that keep us looking up and wondering what might be out there.
And that sense of wonder, that curiosity, that drive to explore the unknown.
Yes.
That's what fuels scientific discovery. Whether we ever make contact with an alien civilization or not, the very act of searching, of asking these questions, expands our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the possibility of alien encounters to those unidentified drones operating in our skies.
Yeah, a lot to think about.
But before we head into the final part of our discussion, let's take a quick break to gather our thoughts and prepare for the next phase of our deep dive. So welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about UFOs, alien encounters, all that mind-blowing stuff, from those crazy shapes to what might happen if we actually met ET. But there's one more thing we need to explore, and it's a big one: the whole philosophical, ethical side of encountering another intelligent species. This isn't just about spaceships and tech. It's about how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe.
Yeah, this is where it gets really deep. I mean, if we ever do make contact, it's not just a scientific event.
Right.
It's a cultural, philosophical, maybe even a spiritual revolution.
Totally.
Everything we thought we knew about ourselves, our history, our place in the universe, it could all be challenged.
Yeah, we talked earlier about how it could impact religion, maybe even lead to new spiritual movements.
Right.
But going beyond that, how would it affect our ideas about ethics and morality? Would our human-centered values even make sense in an interstellar context?
That's a really profound question. Our ethics are mostly based on human experiences and interactions.
Cool.
But what happens when we meet a species with a totally different evolutionary history, a different biology, different social structures? Would our ideas of right and wrong even translate?
So are we talking about a potential clash of values? Could our morality be totally incompatible with theirs? And if so, how do we deal with those differences? Would we try to force our values on them, or would we have to rethink our own ethical frameworks?
It makes us confront the limits of our own understanding. We might encounter things they do that we find, well, morally wrong, but that are perfectly okay in their culture. It would be a real test of our empathy, our ability to understand a completely different view of the world.
It sounds like any interaction with aliens would be full of ethical dilemmas.
For sure.
Even something as basic as communication could bring up a lot of complicated issues. How do we make sure they understand what we're saying? How do we avoid misunderstandings that could lead to conflict?
Communication would be tricky, even if we figure out their language or come up with a universal way to communicate. Just think about the misunderstandings that happen between human cultures. Imagine trying to bridge that gap with a species that might think in completely different ways, perceive reality differently.
It's like trying to explain colors to someone who's been blind their whole life.
Exactly.
But beyond communication, there's the question of their intentions. How can we be sure they're peaceful? What precautions do we need to take to protect ourselves from being exploited or even attacked?
That's where it gets really tough. We'd be dealing with the unknown, a species whose behavior and intentions we can only guess at. It would take a level of caution and strategic thinking that goes beyond anything in human history. Like playing a cosmic game of chess, where every move could have huge consequences.
And even if they were peaceful, there's the possibility of unintended consequences. New technologies, new ideas, new ways of life could disrupt our societies in ways we can't predict.
Absolutely.
It could lead to progress, but also to chaos and conflict.
Think about the impact Europeans had on native populations throughout history. Even well-intentioned interactions can have devastating effects. We'd need to be extremely careful, knowing that even the smallest action could change the course of human history.
It sounds like meeting an alien civilization would be a mixed bag, with both amazing opportunities and huge risks. Is there any way to prepare for something like that, or are we just stuck waiting for whatever happens?
Preparation is key, not just in terms of technology and defense, but also in how we think about ethics and philosophy. We need to have serious discussions about the nature of intelligence, consciousness, and morality. We need to challenge our own assumptions and be ready to adapt to new realities.
Sounds like we need a new renaissance, a global effort to understand ourselves and our place in the universe better. But where do we even start? What can we do now to get ready for something that might be decades, even centuries away?
Well, we can start by embracing curiosity, open-mindedness, and humility.
I like that.
We need to support scientific research, encourage collaboration between different fields, and have real conversations across cultures and belief systems. It's not about finding all the answers, it's about asking the right questions.
It's about becoming more aware, realizing that we're not the center of everything, but just one part of a much larger, more complex existence.
Exactly. And that's a journey we can start right now, whether we ever meet aliens or not. The search for understanding, the pursuit of knowledge, the willingness to face the unknown, that's what makes a truly advanced civilization.
Well said. We've covered a lot today, from those weird UFO shapes to the idea of eating alien food, from the challenges of space travel to the philosophical implications of meeting another intelligent species. It's been a journey into the unknown, a deep dive into those mysteries that are still beyond our grasp.
Yeah, it has been.
And even though we may never have all the answers, just exploring these questions, pushing the limits of what we know, that's what makes us human. It reminds us that we're not just watching the universe unfold, we're active participants in a cosmic story that's still being written. And who knows what amazing things are waiting for us in the next chapter. Maybe one day we'll look back at this conversation and be amazed by how far we've come, how much we've learned, how much our understanding of ourselves and the universe has grown. Until then, keep looking up, keep asking questions, keep exploring the possibilities. That's what the deep dive is all about.